From downtown Detroit, Local 4 Live starts right now.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us here on Local 4 Live. I'm Nick Monticelli, and good morning to everybody watching. Click on Detroit Local 4 Plus and streaming on YouTube. We're going to get to some of your headlines and news of the day, but school is back in session, or it's about to be, and we're going to hear from some school leaders. 2 weeks ago, I sat down with a group of 4 superintendents discussing a wide range of topics, and this morning, we want you to hear that conversation again. Got Nikolai Vitti, the superintendent of Detroit Public Schools Community District. R.J. Weber is the superintendent of Northville Public Schools. Monica Merritt, the superintendent of Plymouth Canton Schools. And Robert Monroe is the superintendent of Utica Community Schools. Thank you so much, the 4 of you, for being here.
Thank you.
Let's just start with back to school here. Everyone's starting either next week, Monday, Tuesday, later on. For those who have never been to school before, we're talking about these little babies. What is your best advice for moms, dads, grandmas, grandpas, and the kids themselves? Bob, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think one of the best things I could say is for parents specifically, stay engaged with your school. Make sure you're going directly to your school district for the appropriate information about what it is to get started for school.
Okay.
I think that's so important today with all the ranges of social media. And we always see some of our parents reaching out to other parents on social media, maybe not always getting the right information, right? So it's always important, I think, to get off to a great start with great communication with your school. Another piece of advice is routines for the little ones, right? Making sure great sleep at night, the routines for breakfast, keeping it consistent throughout the school year, right? So if that's accomplished, then all of a sudden education can come to life in the school. That networking directly with your teacher and great communication, whether it's through email or whether it's through a phone call or whatever the communication may be. I think that partnership, that triangular partnership between parents, the school, and certainly for the benefits of the child is very important.
Yeah, one thing I've noticed, Monica, you can start with this, is that sometimes there becomes frustration when teachers aren't responding to those emails instantly. I think we have to remember that teachers are people too, and we want them to have a life as well.
Absolutely. So in our district, we try to say a 24 to 48-hour rule in terms of getting back to families, especially with our youngest learners. We want to make sure that we're very communicative with our families. Most of us have orientations or back to school nights, so we encourage our families, especially of our newest learners, to get out and meet your school community, get the students an opportunity to tour the campus, get on the playgrounds, really get excited about the start of the school year, and absolutely make those powerful partnerships with our teachers and our staff so that you know that you can trust us to support your students in their educational journey.
A lot of times we see those social media videos of these preschoolers that will start bawling on the way into school. Mine did the same thing. Any tips or advice on how to maybe get rid of some of those jitters, and how long should mom or dad hover in the classroom?
Yeah. I think, first off, we love what we do, right? The 4 of us here get to serve beside people who absolutely love our community public schools and education. So I think as a parent, the energy that your kid picks up is often your energy. So please just have a core understanding that a friend of mine used to say, you learn to go to college by going to college. You learn to go to school by going to school. So we love your kids. Put that energy into the car, into the house, drop them off. We gotcha. And yeah, you'll have some tears when you drive away, but that's good. That's natural. But we got your kids.
All right, Dr. Vitti, your number 1 tip going back to school.
I think it's all been said. I'd just reiterate routines and relationships, and become familiar with where you're going. So maybe go in advance, as already mentioned, open houses. The more students feel familiar with their surroundings, the more comfortable they'll be, and accept the emotions that come naturally. We don't need to yell at kids because they're crying. We don't need to get frustrated with them. It's all part of the experience, and eventually they'll let go. But build a relationship with that teacher, I think, is a critical point, and try to do it in advance if possible.
We've all mentioned routines. Maybe a week, 2 weeks before school starts? At this point, we're kind of late.
Definitely a week. I mean, that's probably late. But, when we talk about routines, we're talking about starting to get to bed early, waking up early, making sure that the supplies are out, if there's a uniform, that's in place. We're thinking about routines for drop-off. We're thinking about routines for pickup. We know emergency contacts. I think those are all the routines that we're talking about. And then obviously getting ready for students to come home and having, you don't have to have a big house. You can be having a little small apartment, but a small place that's quiet and focused on a place to read, do homework, where the TV's off, the computers are off, so you can create a safe place and a quiet place to study and learn after school. I think that's important.
I've also noticed just having a dedicated space to keep your stuff.
That's right.
Yeah. This is where the backpack goes.
Yes,
this is where the shoes go. So you have things ready to go in the
That's
morning.
right. Yeah.
That's half the battle. Is,
Yes.
Mom, where's my belts?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, let's talk about cell phones for a moment. This is a huge debate that's been going on. Should they or should they not be allowed in the classrooms? Governor Whitmer actually called for a ban in her State of the State address. House Republicans and Senate Democrats introduced competing plans to limit smartphone use. The House version failed when it came up for a vote over the summer. About 30 school districts already have bans in place. So we'll start with DPSCD. Cell phones in the classrooms, yes, no, or at what grades? What are your opinions?
I think it's the right debate. I'm glad we're having the conversation. I think ultimately school districts should be empowered to create the policy that they think is right for their community. The way we've had a policy in place for several years now, which really states that you can bring cell phones to school as students, but they can't be used during the learning environment in the classroom unless approved by the teacher. And if they become a distraction, then from a disciplinary point of view, they can be taken away. My opinion is, at least for our community, is that taking away cell phones is just going to lead to small fights with kids and parents. And I think in 2025, cell phones are a reality. It's part of life. It's a way for students to stay connected to parents. It's a safety strategy as well. But it can be disruptive in a learning environment, and I think that's also ultimately the responsibility of the child, the parents, and the educators to hold students accountable to that and lose the privilege if they don't know how to use it.
Right. RJ, what's your...
So in Northville, and there's something Dr. Vitti said there at the end that I want to make a fine point on, so I'll do the policy part quickly. So elementary, no smartwatches, no phones. If they have them, they can be in their bags. Middle school, they can have their phones or no smartwatches on in the bags. High school, on empowerment, our high school team is stellar, so they have built their own way of going about this. But I want to say something around adults. And that's the
I was waiting for the accountability thing to come in.
Well, the
here.
accountability is this, like either the legislature or parents respectfully who want the schools to do something that they themselves won't do is something that's not lost on the four of us. If you go out and go to a Coney Island for dinner, take a look around the restaurant. And when you see a table and a family and you see the parents on their phones with their kids, and I'll say this, I have a 15-year-old. Do I take his phone away from him at 3 o'clock when he comes home? No. Call me a hypocrite if you want, but to expect schools to do all of that and maybe cause the tension that Dr. Vitti is talking about, I think that local districts can find a way through. We're examples, and I'm sure they have as well.
Yeah, I think earlier you said you've got a very similar policy.
Very similar to Northville, and we think about this local decision. It's very important. At our high school, for example, we have 3 high schools on one campus, 6,000 students.
I joked earlier, you need GPS just to learn your way around the campus.
Right, that's right. So being able to use their cell phones while they're going between campuses during lunch is allowed, but it's not permitted in the classroom unless the teacher decides. At K through 8, the classrooms, it's away for the day. No cell phones in the locker rooms or in the restrooms, for example. But really just trying to be responsible with the use of cell phones there. And safety is definitely a concern for our family. So working together just to make sure that everybody understands the policy and the expectations.
You know, it's an interesting conversation, too, because I've heard on the other side saying, you know, when we were growing up, we didn't have cell phones in the classroom. You don't need them now, but there are communication issues that we can solve with having cell phones. The safety and security is a major one. What's the policy at UCS?
Yeah, Utica Community Schools, very similar to our team here. Elementary, no cell phones. If students have them, they're put away. Junior high, limited use, maybe through break times, maybe at lunchtime. We do give some privileges to that. But then at the high school, I would concur. You know, when we were at a place where we were not a one-to-one district, meaning we did not have electronic communication devices, and laptops can do that. We allowed our smartphones in the classrooms to use for surveys and different tools that our teachers were using in the classroom. So now that we've gone to one-to-one across the school district, we have also taken a view that that that's also a communication device. It's not going to solve just a ban on cell phones. Our students would be able to utilize those tools as well in the classroom. But I think the biggest point here was when you talk about local control and what your community expects and how you work with your community, I think there's no better way to look at a policy piece unless you're looking at how your community looks at your own schools and your school district. So we communicate quite regularly through survey and a variety of different methods to our members, our parents, just like I'm sure our fellow superintendents do here. So to have that great relationship to communicate back with them, we get great input about what the expectations are.
Yeah.
And I think we've held to that pretty well.
Does it make any sense to use cell phones in an accountability realm or a privilege for students that if you are behaving, if you do X, Y, and Z, then you get it? Or has that become a problem?
No, I think incentives are important, especially when we know about positive behavior support. But I think there's other incentives around field trips, around school swag, maybe a pass on a homework assignment. Not cell phones. I just think cell phones is again it should be a consistent policy and consistently and reinforced. I think incentives can be used for other things.
Agreed.
Okay. We are going to take a very short 90-second break. When we come back, we have so much more to talk about. So don't go anywhere. You're not off the hook just yet. Welcome back, everybody. Back now with our superintendent panel, DPSCD, Northville Public Schools, Plymouth Canton Community Schools, and Utica Community Schools. The argument that I've heard from some lawmakers is, well, you kind of know what your budgets are going to be. That doesn't seem fair. When I'm working on my checkbook, which I haven't touched a checkbook in a few years, but when we're balancing, I don't kind of want to know, I want to know.
Yeah.
So how do you do this, RJ?
Oh, right now we're in the middle of contract negotiations. I want to say this because I think the other three are going to have wonderful comments. You already hit it, Nick. But it's really, to me, unconscionable that there's a statutory mandate for legislators by July 1st to have our budgets. They didn't. It's been a month and a half. That lack of self-accountability on their part, the four of us and the three of my colleagues are held accountable every day and every moment we want to be. However, if we were to miss a deadline or not do something that was required by law, we would have a consequence for that. I see no consequence, I see no urgency, and I'm going to be really blunt here. I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat. Like, your policy decisions and what you do tells me everything I need to know about how you feel about the kids I serve. And I'm not feeling really great on either side of the aisle right now.
You feel like the kids are a low priority?
Absolutely. A month and a half late. We're talking dollars. We're talking people who need to feed kids, transport kids, keep them safe. We're talking teachers who are waiting and wondering about contracts and calendars and so on. How can you have any more indication of your lack of care than saying, what is it, August the 18th, 19th? July 1st? Month and a half late.
So when you try to put your school year together, I'm sure there are many buckets and pots of money that you have to figure out where things are going. Where do you start, or when do you start deciding, well, I have to pull from here, I have to pull from here, I have to make essentially a larger rainy day fund because I don't know what's coming in? Monica?
Well, we have to, by law, have our budgets approved by June 30th, And so we're.
So you have a deadline.
So we have a deadline. We all made our deadline, June 30th. We needed to ensure that we had staffing available based on our projected enrollment going forward. 85% of our budget is for staffing. And so when we think about that, making sure we have teachers in front of our students and the proper support staff in place. There's uncertainty now, even with federal funding. So when we think about the additional supports that are needed for our most fragile students, we have to plan for that. Programs, when we think about our families and what they expect from their education in our individual school districts, we want to bring forth those innovative programs, but we have to step back now and be conservative because we don't know what will come and what could change.
But
And
that's not what you want to do. Well, you don't want to be
Absolutely
conservative.
not.
You want to roll out the school year with all the bells and whistles for the kids, right?
Absolutely. When you think about staffing and trying to hire, now teachers are hesitant to, if you have openings, they don't know if you're going to be able to offer a contract. So we
Right.
may have talent that we can't bring. We want champions in front of our students. So that just really makes it difficult. Programs that we anticipate that we're going to have that we may pull back. It could impact class sizes. We heard about transportation and our ridership. School meals right now, we only have a guarantee that school meals will be available for all until September 30th.
Right.
And so that would be a cost. We have to make a decision as a school district. Where do we go?
So let's dive into that then. I'm going to go around to everybody. How do you solve that issue? Do you subsidize the cost of free meals through the rest of the school year? Do you budget for that? Do you cross your fingers? Where are you at?
Well, I think it gets us into a place where we have to start thinking about that planning and transition for our families appropriately. I'm just not going to pull the rug out from underneath our families in routines for what they have expected the last several years. In this uncertainty for us in planning, and Nick, I think you hit it right on the head, it really pushes us back to be very conservative in every approach of our school district. Right now, we're looking at final kindergarten sections. We're very fortunate that we're seeing an increase in the number of kids coming into kindergarten in Utica schools, but are we going to place? Are we going to increase class sizes versus knowing exactly what those numbers are? We could,
because you'd like to add a teacher.
we would love to add the teacher, and I know some people say, well, your district's so large, what is one teacher? But every one makes a huge difference. I would also say the turbulence around the ranges of what a budget could look like has really put us in a tailspin. And then on top of that, you throw in some of the federal pieces, whether money is coming from the federal side
Or going.
or going
Right.
away, is also put us a little bit in a different place.
Right.
We've always had discussions around budget and what is budget going to look like, but I think the ranges and the turbulence around it has really been a challenge for us this year.
Dr. Vitti, I know that there's a large segment of your population, of your students, that rely on these free meals. So what's your game plan?
Well, in DPSCD, we're funded a bit different when it comes to meals. So I think DPSCD and maybe Flint are the two districts that primarily rely on federal funding when it comes to meals program. This happened through the Obama administration, where because of the extent of concentration of poverty in the district, all of our students benefit for free and reduced lunch. It's a program that Michigan modeled off the federal government, expanded that, but we still relied on federal funding. So that funding is there federally.
Have you heard anything about that federal funding going away?
Yeah, it has been approved for this year at the federal level. I would just say, Bill Belichick, who's a famous, Super Bowl coach for the Patriots, always used to say, do your job. And I think this is what we're talking about here. We're talking about Republicans, Democrats who ran for office, took an oath, and they have a fiscal responsibility, a duty to the Michiganders to create a budget. Whether they're Republican, Democrat, whether they want to put money in at risk or per pupil, whatever it is, no matter what job we're in this country, from superintendents to teachers to doctors, there's always challenges, there's always disagreements. And leaders figure it out. You compromise, you discuss, you agree to disagree, and you do your job. Yeah. And right now, the legislature is not doing their job. And I think this is, we always try to avoid as superintendents this Democrat-Republican issue because we got to deal with the reality, and we try to balance that out. But the reality here is this is a Democrat problem, it's a Republican problem, and the governor shares responsibility on this as well. And I'm going to go out there and say that. She is the leader of this state, and there's a way that she needs to bring people inside in the office and say, look, we got to figure this out. Where are the differences and how do we move forward, because this is ludicrous. Yeah. It's completely unacceptable, and we are often told as superintendents, do your job. right? We hear that from parents all the time.
Right.
And we often
Probably
hear
at
from-
every school board meeting, right?
And we often hear from the legislature, which is you have to be more fiscally conservative. You need to be more strategic with your budget. Why are we allocating these dollars when we don't see return on investment? We don't even have dollars. So everyone plays their role. Everyone has their responsibility, especially when you run for office. Do your job.
I can see some frustration here. Monica, RJ, we are running out of time, but I have so many more questions for you. Can you walk me through what a school year looks like in terms of budget? So let's say that you guess to see what it's going to be, and then towards the end of the school year, you start running out of money. Do layoffs happen mid-school year?
So you want to avoid layoffs mid-school year as much as possible because that is really detrimental to our students
Right.
and their learning. So you think about what's coming up as count day. That's the most important day in terms of determining your funding. 90% of our funding is based on the current fall count and then 10% on the previous spring count. So when you're looking, you really have to make those decisions and look for your rainy day fund. It's so important to have that fund balance. So in the event that we don't have as much funding as we anticipate, making those decisions at the end of the year. Now, it's always possible, depending on how deep that cut may be, that we are forced to make those difficult decisions that would involve mid-year layoffs, and that's something that none of us want to do. We want to make sure that we're keeping our supports as close to the classroom as possible.
RJ, do you want to add something?
Yeah, in the beginning, you talked about technical aspects, and something that I think people don't understand with school lunches is families, because they've become used to that, we've seen a declension in the free and reduced lunch form and filling those things out, which is actually then directly tied to Title I funding from the federal government. So the other thing that we're thinking about is if that indeed is snatched and we have families who haven't signed up for that and aren't used to it, now we've got to make sure we communicate, make sure the families with that deep level of need are doing that again. And it has like this amazing trickle down, but I know you're pressed on time right now.
I really want to share, though, we all have to be very strategic. We can't do this year over year. We have to really anticipate out so that we know if we have to make some adjustments mid-year, where those adjustments can go, that again would be least impact to the classroom, although everything impacts the classroom.
And Nick, I know you want to make a last final point on this with this budget piece.
So producer Mary has already pulled her hair out.
Thank you.
It's
I
okay.
appreciate it. Going into the school year, if a state budget is not there and we have started our school year, we're not magically just breaking up classrooms and adding teachers or adding different staff in different locations. So I think for all of us, once we open it and we're running, it's going to be very hard to implement said strategies by our legislature to say we can give schools these tools now. Well, that's not going to be an opportunity
little,
for
too
us
late
once
at
the
that
school
point.
year starts.
Yeah, right. You brought up count day, and I want to ask Dr. Vitti about that too, because it's incredibly important for everybody. But your district has made huge efforts trying to get more kids there on count day because it's that important.
Yeah, 90% of the state budget is based on the fall count, 10% on the spring count. So that speaks for itself. And with the extent of student absenteeism that we struggle with in Detroit because of concentrated poverty, it is essential, obviously, that students come in that window. We've done a much better job of just reaching out to our families.
Just helping them understand why.
Yeah, and canvassing, I think, is the secret sauce for us, which is actually getting out to the homes, knocking on the doors. You know, are you aware when school starts? Do you know of the bus routes? You know, we can make accommodations. Just meeting families where they are has come a long way with us, and that was one of the benefits of the pandemic. Is just having to get out there to connect with the parents, and then we've carried that on post-pandemic.
Gotcha. One last question on that. Obviously, the budget still hasn't been set yet, but what is the average on per pupil funding? How much do you get per kid?
About $9,600 now.
Yes.
Okay, so just so everybody at home understands, it's almost $10,000.
Yeah.
So make sure your kid is there on count day. They're going to lose 10 grand every kid.
And we educate children even when they don't come.
Right.
So we actually fund an education, teacher, supplies, buses, you know, all the rest when they don't come to count. It's not like they're kicked out.
Right.
You know, that would be a whole nother conversation.
Right.
But
Yeah,
we still educate children, especially in DPSED, when they don't come to count. The other issue is, even if they come after count, we still educate them.
Right.
And this is where,
without the money to back it.
This is where in 2025 we can come up with better systems for these kind of
Sure,
things, but
yeah.
but you know that's
Lansing, are you
that's
listening?
a truth. That's a truth that I think people need to know. And you know, back to the budget conversation, we don't have a budget by early October. It is going to be impossible for districts not to move into the reserves because they and some districts are too small to even fund what they're doing past October.
That's right.
Yeah, right. Okay, another break here coming up. When we come back, we'll talk about school safety and AI. How, I don't know how you put those in your classrooms and implement the challenges between using it and kids not using it the right way. We'll talk about that when we come back. Good morning, everybody. I'm Nick Monticelli with the Local 4 News Update. A 1989 cold case is back in the spotlight today. Buster Robbins is accused of the rape and murder of Beverly Wivel in 1989. He has a pretrial hearing today. Wivel was abducted from her vehicle after dropping her son off at school. Her body was found shortly after in Superior Township. Prosecutors say Robbins is also under investigation for other cases, including the 1990 murder of Paige Rinkowski. Well, coming up next on Local 4 Live over on Local 4 Plus, today marks the 20th anniversary since Hurricane Katrina slammed into New Orleans, leaving behind unspeakable death and destruction. Coming up, you're going to meet a family who moved to New Orleans to help rebuild and never left. Plus, as August comes to a close, we continue to celebrate Black History Month. We're going to look at a unique space serving the community through some yummy food. We'll be right back.
downtown Detroit. Local 4 Live starts right now.
Well, hey, everybody. I want to get back to our superintendent panel from earlier in the month. We discussed everything from the school budget to cell phones in the classroom. Now it's about safety. Now, this conversation happened 2 weeks ago before the shooting in Minnesota, which is highlighting how important these conversations are throughout the districts. Let's talk school safety. It is probably, equally as important as the education you're all providing there. And it is a conversation that has unfortunately evolved drastically over the past several decades here. First of all, how do you balance providing that education while worrying about things that we never had to worry about before? RJ.
Well, we can flip back to budget. So one of the budget proposals is a block grant, get rid of monies and categories. 31AA is something that we could use for mental health and safety. We've purchased cameras, made secure vestibules, all those pieces. When the 4 of us, and we're not 25 years old anymore, got into education, none of us thought about what we have to think about today as a teacher about school safety. But now as formalized leaders, the amount of money and attention that we spend on safety out of our budget is nothing like it was when we began in education. So there's another budgetary pressure. So you take away the emotional trauma for our staff and our kids and our families, which is horrific. When I talk to parents, their number one question for me is, what are you doing to keep my kids safe? They see another shooting on the news. They see the proliferation of guns. The 4 of us have all received phone calls in the middle of the night that you would never want to receive because something happened to one of our kids. And then we have to find a way to communicate that to our community and our staff to let them know they're still safe. You're really touching on a hot button here, which I'm sure my 3 colleagues are going to speak to as well. But the point I would like to make is that keeping kids safe also requires money and, dare I say, a budget that's on time so we can budget those things.
Yeah, Dr. Vitti.
All well said. I think people have to understand that this is also about relationships. It is also, the schools certainly have a responsibility to keep children safe, and you do that through, extra security, maybe metal detectors, vestibules where you can't come in unless you're, buzzed in from outside, cameras. But ultimately, this has to be also about parents. This has to be about parents knowing what their children are up to. It has to be about parents being willing to be the adult, not the friend. It has to be about monitoring your child's social media, their cell phones, and just having a real relationship with your child around what are their anxieties, what are their frustrations, what are they angry about. If you have a gun, where is that gun? Is it secured? Is it locked? Are you constantly talking about problem solving and communicating through the natural challenges that we've all experienced and we all deal with as human beings and as teenagers? So to me, it's not one or the other. It's both. It's what are you doing to protect your family, your children, but other people's families and children's and children. And then when children come into the school building, then it flips. Then it's what are we doing? And it's got to be a balance between the two, and that's ultimately how we keep children safe. I say it all the time. I've been saying it for years, which is the best metal detector is a relationship with a child, and that's got to be genuine and real from the counselors to the teachers to the parents, to the friends. We've come a long way in DPSCD of children saying, "Hey, I think someone has a gun." Hey, I'm hearing that there's going to be a major fight outside of the school. That has come a long way to build that kind of trust, where we're relying on children, on peers, on teenagers to tell us what's going on. That has, I think, made our schools even more safer because children feel more comfortable stepping forward and taking ownership of the safety.
The question for all of you, how have you been able to foster those relationships where the kids feel comfortable coming to you? Because again, when we were in school just a few years ago, there was that mantra of, snitches get stitches, and nobody wanted to talk, right? But it seems like that corner has turned a little bit.
Nick, I would say, my 2 colleagues talked about budget, they talked about relationships, and I think Dr. Vitti here about relationships, that those connections between the teachers specifically and our kids in the classroom are just invaluable. If that is taking place and we're being more transparent in how our approach is to school safety and talking with our kids, practicing with our kids, going through the drills with our kids, talking to them about all the steps and procedures in our warehouse of tools for school safety now, I think that goes a long way. But I also want to take another angle on this, that our schools are also now expected to do many other things than just instruction. School safety is certainly a huge part of that. We take a tremendous amount of time from instructional time during our school days to make sure our kids' well-being, they feel comfortable in our classrooms, they know what to do if in fact we ever did have a tragedy or some sort of issue within our schools. But then we come back around come springtime, and then accountability comes back in for instruction and what we're doing for our report cards and our grades that are high expectations in the state of Michigan. And we go back and look at it and say, how are we best using that instructional time during the course of the school day? It's a unique balancing act that we have to do in all of this, but first and foremost is our kids do need to feel safe coming to school each and every day.
I wanted to ask you too, and I can only speak specifically to UCS because I know you just went through an entire building redesign, and maybe the other three have, but how do you strike that balance between locking down a building, you know, almost like a fortress so nobody can get in, but also making it feel like it's a place that I want to go to school?
Nick, what you just said is to me, when people talk about having one door into a building, and that's how we're going to keep kids safe, it tells me everything I need to know of what they don't know. We can't have our schools look like Shawshank Prison, where the playground is surrounded by a fence with turrets. And I think that speaks more to how far we've fallen in this country with the ready access to weapons, with the safety pieces. And there is no way in heck I want my son or any of the kids I serve to feel like when they go to school, it is a cold place, a place that is hardened. No way.
Because then, correct me if I'm wrong, but then it impacts their ability to learn.
Absolutely.
It's human nature. Like,
is.
why would anyone want to go to work in a place with no windows and cinder block?
Yes. Students have to feel safe, physically safe, socially safe, racially safe, emotionally safe, all of the above in order to be prepared for learning. And when we
You got to check all those boxes just before you can open a textbook.
And when we think about school safety, we can't have this conversation without talking about mental health as well. So we need to make sure that we're removing that stigma, keeping communication supports in place for students, remove that stigma of mental health and anxiety to ensure that we're building proactively supports so that they know you see something, you say something. We empower our young people to talk about the issues that they're having and to be able to work with their parents and their families to get them maybe the supports that they need if we can't bring them at school, outside of school to make those connections, but really working together to ensure that safety. We all say safety is our #1 priority, and it really is something that we have to live by each and every day.
Nick, I hope you heard the thread about relationships, the thread about that. I'm proud that we've made a massive effort in Northville to focus on relational practices, which means training our teachers and our kids of how to communicate with each other, how to listen to each other. Every paraprofessional, every food service, bus driver, teacher, administrators had specific training. To your point, that's another cost. That's something that we didn't even think about 15 or 20 years ago. But as Dr. Vitti said, I love your quote on the best metal detector. It is about connectivity and relationships. What Dr. Merritt just said, the safety doesn't just encompass physical safety. What about safety of racial safety? Can my nephew go to school who's black and not have to worry about, because of that, having his learning impacted? I wish I could say that he could. He can't. So what do we do about that? And
Is there an answer to that?
None of us are complaining about this. Like, we love this work. Like, this is what we do. But gosh darn it, we need help. We need help from parents. We need help from legislators. We need help from the community in that part. And we will do everything we can possible. Is there an answer to systemic racism? That might be a whole other topic.
We don't have that much time left.
But I think I'll tell you what I would say. One person, a musician I liked, once said, "We may not change the world, but it doesn't mean we can't stop trying." You got to try. Go forward, fail, try. But when you give up, forget about it.
Okay, one more topic here, and I apologize, I have ruined your schedules. I told you to be out of here in half an hour, so to all your assistants, but it's my fault. Artificial intelligence it's here, and it has drastically changed everything we do. But there is, at least in my opinion, a very fine line between finding a way to use it in the school as a tool and something we teach to students because it's something that they can use, while not having them use it to get the work done. And I remember it was an interview, I think it might have been at your district, where we talked about education, and I am not a teacher, so you tell me if we're wrong, but education not necessarily is about finding the answers, it's about learning the process to get there.
Yes.
So, and that's what AI removes, right? So how do you then, and I'll start with you, Dr. Vitti, get AI into the classroom as part of the curriculum without them abusing it?
Yeah, I think the best way to think about AI is not to be afraid of it. I think it's about creating the right systems and processes to hone it, to use it in a responsible way, but it's not going away. Right. Often you hear, well, get rid of the laptops, get rid of the computers, get rid of AI. If you're not getting rid of AI, right or wrong, it's here to stay. So if you teach children how to use it responsibly, it could actually be a tool. But as students use AI more, there's counter ways that teachers can use AI to make sure that things are not being, cut and pasted, that the writing is authentic. But there is a way to help struggling writers with AI and learning how to better write, put together syntax and things like that. But at the end of the day, our schools still need to teach the basics of literacy and of writing, oral presentation. That's not going away. AI can't do that for you. At some
Not
point,
yet.
at some point, you're going to have to stand on your own,
Yeah.
and write something on your own. You're going to have to stand up and defend and talk about something. That's not going away, and I think our teachers need to continue to be trained and understand how to use it in the classroom. Parents need to understand, the rightful use of it, so it's not a mechanism to cheat. That's ultimately where we're headed and what we have to do.
I remember early conversations that there were fears that AI would replace teachers.
Yeah.
And hopefully those fears have gone away.
It was a year ago that we met, and think of how much has changed.
Right.
One of my favorite leaders, Ari Weinswig, who was the founder of Zingerman's, once said, you're always going to have problems in life. Search for better problems. This is one of those better problems, to Dr. Vitti's point. There is so much you can do with it that can actually make efficiency for our teachers, which can give them more time with kids one-on-one.
Yeah. Help with lesson planning.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's another one of those, I would say, good problems. But and this in Northville, early on we adopted an approach that we were not going to limit it or shut it down. We needed to learn about it. So that's really what the last year has been for us, is trying to figure out how can I help teachers, how can I help our administrators, how can I help our kids. The president of NVIDIA said that AI is not going to take people's jobs, but in 5 years, people who don't know how to use it, it will take their jobs.
Yes.
Right. And
How many quotes do you have memorized?
Right.
I think, Nick, I think the evolution of AI is going to be so rapid and so fast.
Yeah.
I think the idea around practices, planning, policies in our school district is a very responsible approach to start. But I want to hit that piece on the teachers. I think the leveraging that the teachers have done already. When AI came out and we're all kind of scratching the surface of it, they were already running with it. They were already grabbing ChatGPT and a variety of things. And what we have seen is that it's been making their job, I don't want to say easier, that's probably the wrong word, but it has allowed them to interface with technology differently. So it maybe finishes a lesson plan for them that now they can incorporate, they can work with students more directly and not work on the behind the scenes piece in the teaching is
Getting all the materials and printed
all the
and
materials,
all
the things needed for that lesson can give them great creative suggestions by AI. But I think the thing that we also have to remember is that it is the human intellect that produces the request back to AI of what we need. If AI produces it, we all need to continue to think critically about what AI provides us, and then what is our approach with that information. So it's almost a human to AI to human approach. Because what I've seen with our students too is that they have sat down looking at AI pieces of writing, as Dr. Vitti talks about, critically reviewed it, and even would make suggestions of how it could be different with an AI piece. So when you think about that type of skill, where they're taking on quote unquote perfect material that's coming back to them, I think it's just a unique time and experience for us in education to maybe, flip flip it back
Yeah.
on its face about how we're going to use AI in the
There's
future.
probably a confidence boost there too. The kids
Yeah,
say, I beat the
absolutely.
robot.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
In addition to everything that you heard, we just know that our students, we're not setting them up for success if we are not preparing them to use AI effectively. And so even talking about jobs, so we need to make sure that we embrace it. It is here. It is going quickly. In Plymouth Canton, we worked on creating a policy first, and now this year is really about implementation of plans for teachers, professional development, to ensure that they know how to utilize the tools effectively.
It's almost, and maybe this is the wrong, comparison, but let's say it's a trade school and there's a brand new tool out to fix that ductwork, and you don't teach the kids how to use it. If you're not doing that, then see, all right.
Well, and ultimately, schools at the highest level are about learning how to critically think, analyze information, and synthesize information. AI can be a tool in that, but at the end of the day, our best teachers and the best learning experience is learning how to think, learning how to make an argument, defend it, and understand, make sense of the world around you through, the different means of knowledge and information. And I think AI will never be able to do that. And that ultimately is why you can't replace a teacher.
That's right.
Okay, Nikolai Vitti, RJ Weber, Monica Merritt, Bob Monroe, thank you so much for your time. Again, I'm sorry we went 45 minutes instead of the 15 that I promised you, but this was an incredible conversation.
Thank you.
And we'll post it so you can send snippets of it to all your different lawmakers if you want.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you so
Appreciate
much.
it very much.
Appreciate
Thank you,
it.
Nick.
All right, we're going to take a break. We're going to reset and get some headlines here in just a moment on Local 4 Live. Let's get to your top headlines this morning. In about 45 minutes, a hearing will start for a Detroit mother accused of killing her 8-year-old son. Prosecutors say Kentoria Moss and the boy's stepfather, Jamar Hill, brutally beat him last November, leading to his death. Hill, already serving 18 to 40 years after pleading guilty. The hearing for Moss begins at 9:30 this morning. Also in court today, Buster Robbins, the man accused of raping and murdering a Washtenaw County mom back in 1989. Prosecutors say Robbins kidnapped Beverly Wavell. Wavell was in her car after she dropped her son off at school. Her body was found soon after in Superior Township. Robbins also is under investigation for other cases, including the 1990 murder of Paige Ronkowski. This is a pretrial hearing, meaning both sides will go in front of a judge to discuss the case and prepare for a trial or potentially discuss a plea deal. We are learning new details about the 2 children who lost their lives in that tragic shooting at a Catholic school in Minneapolis. 8-year-old Fletcher Merkel is one of the victims. Several others were hurt during the shooting, including 15 kids between the ages of 6 and 15. Fletcher's father talked about this yesterday, asking everybody to remember his son for the wonderful person he was and not the tragic way he died.
A coward decided to take our 8-year-old son Fletcher away from us. Because of their actions, we will never be allowed to hold him, talk to him, play with him, and watch him grow into the wonderful young man he was on the path to becoming.
Well, 10-year-old Harper Moisky was identified as the other young child who lost her life. Her family released a statement describing her as a joyful spirit who touched everyone who knew her. Her family says they hope her memory will lead to action to address gun violence and mental health in the U.S. The injured victims are all expected to recover. Well, taking a live look at New Orleans this morning, it is hard to believe, but today marks 20 years since Hurricane Katrina hit the Big Easy. Katrina hit New Orleans as a powerful Category 4 storm with winds over 125 miles per hour. The heavy rains and massive storm surge broke the city's levees, causing catastrophic flooding. Nearly 1,400 people were killed, and the damage is estimated at $125 billion. Coming up at 9 o'clock, Brian Sherman is going to join me to share more about the lasting impact of this storm and try to break down exactly how it all happened. And speaking of Brian, he's going to be here in about 60 seconds to give us your forecast. What does it look like for this Labor Day holiday weekend? The weather department is going to be here so you can see what the last trip could look like before summer comes to a close. Welcome back to Local 4 Live, everybody. It is the day before the weekend of Labor Day.
Yes.
Meaning that a lot of people are going to try to maybe enjoy like a last-minute summer vacation.
As you should.
Right. And it sounds like this weekend is just kind of perfect.
Oh, we could not ask for better weather. Yesterday, kind of the hump to get over with those rain showers moving into the region. Then we are left with the sunshine. We're looking out early this morning. Tower cam over at Metro Airport. If you are going to be catching that early morning flight or getting out of town to see family and friends this weekend, a beautiful start, but a little chilly out the door as well. 52 this morning here in downtown Detroit, 51 starting off in Pontiac, 52 this morning in Howell, and 50 as you're waking up in Port Huron. That cold front from yesterday, we call it a backdoor cold front because it's been sinking from the north off to the south. Now down into the Ohio Valley early this morning, south of Cincinnati, heading into West Virginia and Kentucky. High pressure off to the north and west over the UP. That is going to be controlling our forecast as we head throughout the upcoming holiday weekend, leaving us high and dry. We really don't bring shower and thunderstorm chances back into the forecast until we get to the middle of next week. What we are going to be talking about is temperatures, still running about 10 degrees below where we should be for this time in late August and heading into early September. But let's call today the bottom of the barrel. We're into the 70s by the time we get to tomorrow, all the way into early next week with a warming trend on the way. We are into the upper 70s to near 80 degrees by the time we get to Tuesday afternoon. Let's go beyond the 7-day here. It looks like we've got another round of fall preview temperatures heading our way by mid next week. Once that shower and thunderstorm chance moves through next Wednesday into Thursday, our upper level temperatures here, those blue, those are the colder temperatures. Looks like we've got another drop coming back into the 60s and 70s as we go into the second half of next week. So no sign that we're going to be getting rid of this fall preview that we've been dealing with all week anytime soon. Overnight lows, we're seeing a little bit of a moderation, especially into the middle of next week. While we're in the upper 40s, tomorrow morning we'll warm into the upper 50s for morning lows by the time we get to Wednesday. But Friday morning again, back down into the mid 40s when we should be into the low 60s overnight for this time in late August and heading into early September. The 3-day holiday weekend, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, low 70s tomorrow, upper 70s by the time we get to Monday. It's going to be a beautiful weekend for any outdoor activities, low humidity the entire weekend long, and then we keep at least a little bit of this outside. Sunshine over downtown Detroit and Hart Plaza. Really, Nick, not a bad forecast as we head into the weekend. We've seen a lot worse, that's for sure.
I was going to say, yeah, enjoy it because this is kind of the beginning of the end, so to speak.
Yes,
right?
The weather is in autopilot from this point forward as we head into the rest of the weekend. So, you know, anything outdoors, indoors, pop open the windows, give the air conditioning a break.
Get some fresh air.
Get some fresh air.
Speaking of things to do, how about the Redhead Festival? Want to take a trip to Amsterdam? Producer Mary does. We'll explain when we
how
come
often
back.
do I go there?
Welcome back, everybody. Let's take a live look in Amsterdam this morning over in the Netherlands. And while it's an 8-hour plane ride to get there, you still have time for one very unique festival. Once in Amsterdam, just take an hour train southward, then you get towards Belgium. And that's where you find the city of Tilburg. And that is where you're going to find the annual Rode Hergendag. Did I do it right, Mary? I was close. Rode Hergendag. Rode Hergendag. Anyway. It's a Dutch word that means the Redhead Day Festival. This weekend is the world's largest 3-day festival dedicated to celebrating natural red hair. Thousands of redheads from more than 80 countries will flood the city for a festival that actually started by accident when an artist took out an ad in the newspaper.
A project he wanted, let's say a dozen, 15 red-headed models. So because he didn't know a lot of redheads, he posted a request in the newspaper, and instead of the dozen 15 applicants, he got 150 responses.
Now here's the best part. You don't have to join, you don't have to be a redhead to join in the fun. Many attendees bring their non-redhead friends and family along. Many say it's a huge family reunion with people of all ages coming together with different hues of red.
You just see people reconnecting with each other. You see people making the first connection with others, and you really just see everybody just walking around, just meeting others, and just recognizing people from years before. And for me, it's just that, just seeing that. Basically, it's just one big family reunion. That's basically what it is, and that's just the I think the beauty of it.
It sure is. The festival also had the world record for the largest redhead gathering with more than 1,700 redheads in one place. And look at that. Mary Catherine Burson finally making an appearance on Local 4. This is a day that should be noted in the record books. Brian, are you seeing this?
I love it.
He's so excited.
Love it.
Great. Now, Mary is somewhere in the crowd, aren't you, Mary? Where are you? You're in the middle. That doesn't help.
We have to try to find her in the middle of this. I'm like actually looking at one of the screens back
Just
here
look
in the
for the
Weather
redhead.
Center.
Oh, wait.
I think I found her. She's like almost like middle of the T, Mary.
The middle
right?
of the T. All right, that's your new nickname, middle of the T. So much more coming up in the next hour of Local 4 Live. Still ahead, 20 years since Hurricane Katrina forever changed the Gulf Coast. We're going to look at how that city has remembered the lives lost and trying to rebuild stronger than ever. And then Michigan football kicks off tomorrow against New Mexico. We're going to preview the season with the voice of the Wolverines, Doug Karsh. Plus, our Black Business Month celebration continues. We're going to take you inside of a Detroit food hall that's becoming a community hub. More news, more weather, another hour of Local 4 Live right after this.
downtown Detroit. Local 4 Live starts right now.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Local 4 Live. I'm Nick Monticelli. So much coming up here in the next hour. Let's get you caught up to speed on some of the headlines. It has been 20 years since Hurricane Katrina devastated the Gulf Coast. We're going to look live in New Orleans now and show you how the city has honored the lives lost while rebuilding stronger than ever. Plus, Brian Sherman is here with just a few moments looking at all of it and how it unfolded. And then a live look at the Big House. As you can see, Ann Arbor off on the corner there. Michigan football is back. The Wolverines kicking off their season tomorrow against New Mexico. We're going to preview that season with their play-by-play voice, Doug Karsh. And we're also continuing our Black Business Month celebration. This week, we went to a unique food hall on Detroit's northwest side, a space that's bringing the community together through food. We're going to talk with the prosperous Detroit CEO about the impact of Black entrepreneurship. A live look in D.C. right now. We're in just under an hour. A showdown that's been brewing between the White House and the Federal Reserve. Governor Lisa Cook has filed a lawsuit against President Trump, challenging what she calls his illegal attempts to remove her from the central bank's board. The president moved to fire her over allegations of mortgage fraud. Cook is asking a judge to block her removal and declares she remains an active member of the Fed board and its rate-setting committee. A hearing on that request is set for 10 a.m. But first, some of your headlines. Friday has been declared a day of mourning in Ukraine's capital city, Kyiv. Flags are to be flown at half-mast, and entertainment events have been canceled. This after a massive attack from Russia happened this morning. Experts say it is Moscow's second largest aerial assault on Ukraine since the war began. Officials said the dark of night bombardment on Kyiv killed at least 21 people. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said in a statement the strike shows Russia's goals have not changed. Well, today marks the 20th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina, making landfall in Louisiana and Mississippi. You're looking live at New Orleans right now, a city that has done a lot to rebuild in the past 2 decades. All week, there have been events in New Orleans to honor those who died and highlight the city's recovery. Let's take a look back here. On August 29th, 2005, the Category 3 hurricane made landfall, causing widespread devastation and flooding. That triggered a humanitarian disaster that claimed nearly 1,400 lives. This video shows all of the homes underwater and people being rescued from the floods, many of them off of the roofs of their homes. As many as 30,000 people who were ordered to evacuate went to the Superdome for shelter. But when Katrina made landfall, it tore open part of the roof and rain started pouring into the stadium. The drinking water was limited, much of the stadium was left without power, and plumbing began to fail. There were even reports of rapes and deaths inside. Well, video shows the chaos at another shelter at the New Orleans Convention Center. It did not suffer structural damage, but there also was no power there, and water and supplies were running thin. Well, former meteorologist Brian Sherman is here now to kind of walk us backwards and how this all happened. Yeah. You were tracking it. That was one of the first hurricanes you covered, I believe.
In 2005, I was an intern for WLWT, the NBC affiliate in Cincinnati, Ohio, where I grew up. And working with my friend John, who was a meteorologist there at the time, I still talk to him to this day. Their sister station was WDSU, the NBC affiliate in New Orleans. And we were seeing the video feeds come into the station there in Cincinnati from New Orleans as this system was starting to play out. We knew that this was going to be a major system. It had reached Category 5 strength, winds of 165 to 170 miles an hour. Before it started to weaken a little bit, when it started to reach southern Louisiana, that's why it made landfall as a Category 3, and actually made 2 landfalls, one in the southern marshland, then one is that you get closer toward the New Orleans metro. This storm is the one that pretty much changed how we look at tropical systems. It changed some internal policies and procedures with the National Weather Service, the National Hurricane Center, just because of the magnitude, because people were comparing this storm to Hurricane Camille of 1969. And we, at least in the meteorology world, we remember Katrina because of Camille and Camille's damage that was left behind in the southern Gulf Coast. Let's go to graphics here. This is the overall track of Hurricane Katrina. It developed over portions of the southwestern Caribbean Caribbean, then started to strengthen and move off to the north and west and turn and make its first landfall in portions of southern Florida between Miami and Fort Lauderdale as a Category 1 hurricane with winds of 75 miles an hour. Then going over into the Gulf of Mexico, we started to see that northwesterly turn and taking it right into southwestern Louisiana. Obviously, the Gulf of Mexico had lots of moisture to work with, so this system rapidly intensified. You can see there top winds 170 miles an hour with this system and over 1,700 fatalities from this system. What we remember with this system is some of the eerie messages that were coming out from the National Weather Service in New Orleans prior to Katrina's landfall. So this was August 28th, yesterday, reading from that statement, quote, devastating damage expected, Hurricane Katrina, a most powerful hurricane with unprecedented strength, rivaling the intensity of Hurricane Camille of 1969. Most of the area will be uninhabitable for weeks, perhaps longer. At least one half of well-constructed homes will have roof and wall failure. The statement continues to say high-rise office and apartment buildings will sway dangerously, a few to the point of total collapse. All windows will blow out. Airborne debris will be widespread and may include heavy items such as household appliances and even light vehicles. Persons, pets, and livestock exposed to the winds will face certain death if struck. Power outages will last for weeks, perhaps longer. Most power poles will be down and transformers destroyed. Water shortages will make human suffering incredible by modern standards. The statement continues to say few crops will remain. Livestock left exposed to the winds will be killed. An inland hurricane wind warning is issued when winds of at least hurricane strength are expected within 12 to 24 hours. Once tropical storm and hurricane force winds onset, do not venture outside. At the same time as Katrina was making landfall, we started to see tornado warnings come out. We would expect it with the outer bands, but these were for the eye wall and also for the damage that was coming out. This tornado warning issued on the 29th today. This was for portions of Jefferson, Lafourche, Orleans, Plaquemines, St. Bernard, and St. Charles parishes for, as you can see there, many reports coming in stating total structural failure in the New Orleans metro area. You're seeing some of the video there, and that was just one of numerous tornado warnings. But then we had the flash flood warnings that were coming out for the levee breaches. The lower 9th ward, which was inundated with feet and feet of water. When evacuation orders were coming out, officials were saying if you are staying in your house, take an axe with you to break through your roof. We have not seen this ever since. We've had a lot of Category 5 storms, but Katrina pretty much set the benchmark for response moving forward. One of the new things that came out of it was the new extreme wind warning from the National Weather Service. That was because the Weather Service issued those tornado warnings for the eye wall. Now we have the extreme wind warning, which is used for landfalling tropical systems and the eye wall for winds of at least Category 3 strength. And then the modeling and the data has gotten better since this as well. And we know that emergency responders have learned lessons from this that they're using. Contraflow plans, earlier evacuations. I know was watching some coverage this morning, and then another friend of mine I worked with down in Cincinnati, John, he worked at WWL and actually evacuated, and his son was born today when Katrina was making landfall.
Really?
Yep, I saw the pictures he posted on social this morning. He was changing his first diaper in the back of a car as they were evacuating north to his wife's family up in Cincinnati. So this is a storm that we will never forget. It is the benchmark. 20 years later, now we look back. How does this compare to Katrina? But now we've got other named storms that rival. That 2005 season, we had 3 major storms: Katrina, Rita, and one more. I forget. I'm thinking of the name here. Wilma. Yes. All back to back to back that were facing the Gulf Coast there. So lots of lessons learned, lots of reflecting going on down in the Gulf Coast and across the nation with meteorologists too, because we always talk about how could we do things different? How could things be better?
And I think one of the biggest things, takeaways at least, is that those evacuation orders are there for a reason.
Exactly.
You know, there were so many people who said that's not going to be that
No.
bad.
And then the one thing I know the challenge was with the city of New Orleans, there was something written in the code that they were not allowed to issue a mandatory evacuation. They had to go back and rewrite something, and I know that's why the Governor Blanco at the time was working with the Mayor Ray Nagin, on how could they issue a mandatory evacuation for the city of New Orleans to get people out. Since then, you know, they've done done a lot with busing and everything. A few years later, they had another storm that headed that way.
Yep.
It was a whole night and day difference on getting people out of that city, because keep in mind, New Orleans technically sits below sea level.
Right.
And those pumps are critical to getting water out of the city. And when you're looking at a storm like Katrina, all the electric's gone. Those pumps aren't going to be getting that water out of the city. And when you get those levee breaches like that, that water is just coming in so fast and so hard. There's just nothing you can do to mitigate it at that point. So.
Okay, Brian, thank you so much.
You. Appreciate it.
Kind of forget some of the things that happened 20 years ago.
And it's good that we remember and share the lessons we've learned from storms like Katrina, just because of the impact it has made on not only southern Louisiana Gulf Coast and the state, but the entire country in our emergency response and preparedness to storms like Katrina.
All right, Brian.
Thank you,
sir. Well, with all the chaos that was created by that hurricane 20 years ago, we wanted to highlight just a little bit of good that came from it. People who were flooding there literally to help rebuild New Orleans. CNN's Gustavo Valdez has the Good Samaritans who moved there to help and then never left.
20 years after Hurricane Katrina devastated New Orleans, you can see signs of the new life in the city. These houses are an example of the recovery in the lower Ninth Ward, one of the city's most affected areas. Angelica Rivera is one of the many workers who helped bring it back to life. Is the New Orleans you see today the same New Orleans you came to?
No, not at all.
With small children, one barely a few months old, she moved from Orlando after the storm, following her husband, a handyman who saw an opportunity working in construction.
I'm not gonna lie, I cried a couple times because I was like, I don't want to be here.
Because basic services like drinking water and electricity were slow to return. But they didn't give up, growing their business from a small team only doing house framing to a full-service construction company, helping many homeowners who they say were swindled by contractors who took their money and left town.
So a lot of people were without money and without a house.
Their growth was fueled by thousands of workers who came from across the country and outside the U.S. to work in construction.
Because most of the people that was here was Latinos.
Who worked in difficult conditions, battling the intense heat and humidity to rebuild this iconic American city. Their efforts are celebrated in this sculpture in the infamous Ninth Ward, ground zero of the deadly floods.
I really believe that they were key in trying to get the New Orleans area back.
Dr. Juan Hershanik commissioned the sculpture after speaking with children of those workers, who he says were shy about their parents' profession. He wanted them to be proud of the work their parents did.
Undoubtedly, that was my first goal.
High praise coming from a person considered one of the heroes of the post-Katrina tragedy, evacuating premature babies out of the hospital, manually blowing oxygen to one of them for hours, accolades he'd rather be given to others.
The understanding of how much the contribution of the Latinos was made during the post-Katrina recovery time.
Many of those came thinking their stay in the Big Easy would be temporary, but now they call it home. According to the U.S. Census, the Hispanic population of metropolitan New Orleans has doubled in the past 20 years. The number of Black and white residents has decreased.
Someone say that if you drink water from the Mississippi River, you stay in New Orleans and you will never leave. I think I did that because this is our home now.
Gustavo Valdez, CNN, New Orleans.
All right, when we come back, it's football time. U of M, the Big House in Ann Arbor. The season about to kick off. When we come back, we're going to be joined by the voice of the Wolverines with what we can expect this year. Local 4 Live. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Local 4 Live, everybody. A live look at the Big House right now in Ann Arbor. Michigan football kicking off tomorrow in Ann Arbor against New Mexico. The Wolverines currently ranked 4th in the Big Ten. So for a season preview, Doug Karsch, the play-by-play announcer for Michigan football and host on 97.1 The Ticket, is joining us. Doug, thanks so much, man. I want to start with this. 4th in the Big Ten. Do you think that ranking is accurate?
Well, anytime you have a true freshman quarterback, I think you can expect there to be some growing pains. So I'm not surprised. We don't know what direction that's going to go. He's incredibly talented, but freshmen do make mistakes, and though that's tough to overcome. Defensively, they appear to be pretty well set. If you look at last year against Alabama in the ReliaQuest Bowl, that was essentially the defense that's going to play this year for Michigan. They had a bunch of guys sitting out, so it was the 2025 defense debuting in that ReliaQuest Bowl, and they did an incredible job against Jalen Milroe and company. So, I think the defense can carry them early in the year while Bryce Underwood gets up to speed, but they've got what should be an improved offensive line, an improved receiver room. They've got an exceptionally good running back room. So it really comes down to how quickly the kid, the Belleville product, gets things going.
He's the 4th true freshman quarterback for the Wolverines. And you kind of mentioned his development and what needs to happen here. What conversations have you seen on the field and in the locker room trying to get that kid ready for a big stage like this? I mean, Belleville High School is big football, but nothing compares to Wolverine football.
Yeah, sure. I mean, look, the thing about it is, it's funny when you talk to people, the feeling in the building is, yeah, he's a freshman. Yeah, he makes mistakes, but you know what? He's pretty good. And it was a couple weeks ago, they had a scrimmage at the Big House, and he made a few throws, and Sharon Moore looked at his offensive coordinator, Chip Lindsey, and said, I think we got our guy. But I also can tell you that through the years, in being close to the program and getting to know, guys at practice can do one thing, and then they get in the Big House, and there's 110,000 people, and it's national TV, and the opponents mean business, and it's a different animal. So you really don't know how you're gonna react until you get into that situation. And so we'll start to find out tomorrow night.
Something that struck me reading some of his interviews and listening to him is that he's got confidence, which is a good thing. But is there such a thing on that stage as too much confidence?
I mean, he's got to learn. You're going to see that confidence mean, how does that manifest itself on the field? That can mean I can make this throw when you really can't. It means I can outrun that defender that you could in high school that you really can't. Yeah. And that's part of the learning curve. And the funny thing is the confidence that's come out publicly, behind the scenes, I hear the same thing. He's so humble around his teammates that he's earned their respect. He's earned their trust. They think he's going to be a leader already. But they say it's a humility that helped him integrate himself into this roster, and that's going to help him become a leader of this team.
Yeah. Okay, let's transition to the sign stealing saga. Sharon Moore is going to have 2 games out this season. Are there any lingering clouds there, or do you think the program is just moving past it and this won't be a discussion?
It's not a discussion. I mean, that was all handled at an administrative level. The players weren't paying attention. The staff was, many of them, some of them weren't even here. So at the end of the day, they're glad to have it behind them and they can get down to the business of playing football. It was a big story. It hung over the program, but at this point, it's all about the football.
Yeah. You mentioned the D-line a little bit there, too. We lost Mason Graham. We lost Kenneth Grant. There's an overhaul happening there. Are they ready, or is there going to be some building in these first few games?
So the defensive tackles that you mentioned, they're going to be different styles of defensive tackles this year. Wink Martindale, the defensive coordinator, told me this week that the Trey Pierce, for instance, is going to play a lot in there. And they've got Damon Payne, another Belleville kid who transferred in. Trey Williams, a transfer from Clemson. They're more of a mauler, run stuffer type than they were guys who would get to the quarterback. The way Mason Graham was unbelievable. And they're going to rely on their edge rushers. And you go back to TJ Guy and Derek Moore against Alabama. They had a couple meet me at the quarterback sacks against Jalen Milroe. So, I think the edge rushers are probably going to play a big role here, and they'll have maulers in the middle that are probably more run stuffers than pass rushers this year.
Yeah. Let's jump ahead to 2026 for a moment, if you don't mind here. Do you think that we're going to see a Michigan Western game in Germany? Like, where are we falling on this so far?
Well, nothing is finalized yet, but it is in the works. I think they want to play that game. That would be a week 0 game, and it would be, so they play that game, have the week off, and then be hosting Oklahoma next year. It's something that they want to do. They've got, things in the works. Again, it's not finalized. Do I think it's going to happen? I think it probably is, and I look forward to it.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you want it? Do you want a call game in Germany?
I do. I want to go to Germany. I think it'd be fun. I think it'd be great. I'm excited about it. It's one of those trips. You don't get on the plane on Friday and come back right after the game, right? I mean, you'd probably go over and have a period of acclimation. So I would hope that I could get over there with them early and get to do that. And, it's the kind of thing in this new world, I would bet that there's going to be a major corporate sponsor out of Germany that's going to give me, because to give up a home date, think of how much money they have to pay.
Right.
To have Michigan give up a home date. And I wouldn't be surprised if it becomes a bit of an NIL deal too.
Exactly. Right. We're out of time here, but I have to ask you one more question, Doug. Take off your Michigan hat and put on your 97-1 hat. This Micah Parsons trade, Cowboy to the Packers. We're gonna see the Packers. Next weekend here. What are you thinking about this? Because I'm blown away.
It's something else. I mean, look, the Packers have done an all-in move. They're trying to win the Super Bowl this year. They've got over $100 million sunk into 2 players now, Micah Parsons and Jordan Love. Yeah. They're going to have some cap considerations moving forward. They also will not have first-round picks, but they're trying to win now. The Lions are definitely on more of a longer timeline in terms of trying to maintain the level that they're at.
Yep.
It's going to be what we talk about probably for 4 hours today, starting at 10 a.m. on 97.1. It is a huge story. Packers have now passed the Lions as the favorite in the division, but it was never going to be easy. It's not now. I think, it's the Lions feed off of disrespect. Right. We talk to Jared Goff every week, and he loves it when people call them out, and people are going to say that they're cooked. And I'm going to be interested to see how Dan Campbell plays this and how they respond.
Yeah, man, I cannot wait to see that Game 1 matchup. That's going to be incredible. All right, Doug, thanks so much for your time, man. Get ready for your show.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, take care. All right, don't forget, before Michigan takes on New Mexico tomorrow, tune in at 6:30 right here on Local 4 for our pregame show. We're going to have former starting freshman Tate Forcia. He's going to give his take on Bryce Underwood starting as a quarterback. Hobie Artigue, Joel Sebastianelli, Jamie Edmonds are getting us ready for that game. First game of the season, the Big House. It's all happening tomorrow on Local 4. Well, a new coffee spot is brewing up something special in Detroit. Saturn Coffee opens this weekend inside a historic Midtown building. We'll give you a first look at the space and what's on the menu when we come back. Welcome back to Local 4 Live. A new coffee spot opening its doors in Detroit's historical buildings this weekend. Saturn Coffee will be welcoming customers Saturday at 700 Seaward Avenue inside the historic Abington apartment building. That's just a few blocks from the Fisher. The husband and wife team behind Saturn say they want to create a friendly space for neighbors, whether it's a quick pick-me-up or a meeting or catching up with some friends. On the menu is locally roasted Hyper Eon coffee, espresso tonics, and fresh homemade biscuits baked daily. In fact, customers can even build their own biscuit sandwiches. Brian Sherman is here with Look at Your Labor Day weekend forecast.
Yes.
Is it biscuit making weather?
I would say it would be. I'm good to cook and bake anytime. Bring it on.
Really?
Yeah. More of a banana bread thing for me. I like some of that
Oh.
stuff I can take to school in the morning or bring in when I'm filling in
Did you
here
get the
for
cinnamon
Ashley.
bread that Jimmy brought for us?
Yes, I got a loaf of that to take
Ooh.
home because that sounds really good with
Yeah.
some coffee. And
Yes.
temperatures this week so far have been very much where we've wanted to start going into that warm
Pumpkin
coffee.
spice temperatures.
I was about ready to say it because it is. Remember, I had that pumpkin spice advisory last weekend. Doesn't look like that's going anywhere anytime soon, especially into the holiday weekend, but we couldn't ask for better weather as we head into the upcoming Labor Day weekend. Tower cam over at Metro Airport. Sunshine and a little bit of high cloud cover as you're waking up early this morning. 56 degrees here in Detroit. 55 this morning up in Pontiac. 54 as you're waking up in Howell, and also 54 this morning as you're starting off up in Port Huron. Our cold front from yesterday that brought us the rain showers sinking to the south and east. It's what we call a backdoor cold front because it moved from the north off to the south. Not the traditional way we look at cold fronts moving through. High pressure off to the north over the UP. That is going to keep us dry as we head throughout at least the next 2 to 3 days. But if you are going to be traveling for the holiday weekend right now, no airport delays for the majority of the United States. The one exception down over Florida, MCO, Florida, and Orlando International Airport there. Looking at some minor delays starting to show up. That is due to thunderstorm activity over portions of the not so sunshine state heading into the morning hours this morning. Here at home, we're dry all the way through the weekend and into the first part of next week. Our next chance of showers and thunderstorms really doesn't arrive until Wednesday and into Thursday of next week. Temperatures will continue to be the big story, running about 10 degrees below average today, upper 60s for a daytime high, and we start to warm things up into the 70s through the weekend and into early next week to where we hit the upper 70s by the time we get to Monday and into next Tuesday. Once that front rolls through next Wednesday and into Thursday, our upper level temperatures here, another round of a fall blast heading our way with another reinforcing shot of colder air coming in from Canada for the end of next week and the first weekend of September. So if you're not wanting any summer-like heat, it really doesn't look like we're going to get back to that type of the forecast, at least anytime soon. Overnight lows, chilly, back into the upper 40s for Saturday morning, but then we warm things up. We're into the upper 50s by the time we get to the middle of next week before back down into the middle 40s out the door by the time we get to next Friday morning. So for the holiday weekend, really not looking too bad. Low 70s on Saturday, warming into the upper 70s by the time we get to Monday. Lots of sunshine Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And then that dry weather pattern continues into the majority of next week as well. Upper 70s to lower 80s Tuesday and Wednesday. But that's when we start to bring in the chance of a few showers or thunderstorms late Wednesday night with a good chance of some widespread showers and thunderstorms by the time we get to Thursday. So for tonight, any high school football games remaining, Nick, as well as the U of M game, the MSU game, anything outdoors.
All the games.
All the games.
All the games.
Green light from Mother Nature, no weather problems as we head throughout the weekend.
I know you're a Delta guy, but Frontier
Yes.
Airlines is rolling out a bunch of new routes from Detroit Metro. I'll show you where you can go for cheap when we come back. Let's take a live look over Detroit Metro Airport right now. If you plan on traveling soon, the airport is actually getting a major boost from Frontier Airlines. The ultra low-cost carrier is adding new routes to and from the Motor City as part of a 20-route expansion with fares starting as low as $20. They're going to run between Detroit, New Orleans, Miami, Houston, Fort Lauderdale, Charlotte, and Cancun. The new Detroit routes will begin service later this year, with tickets going on sale on September 2nd. Well, Microsoft is testing an artificial intelligence model that could heighten its competition with OpenAI. It's a homegrown AI model that may eventually lead to enhancements for Microsoft's Copilot assistant for consumers. Up until now, Microsoft has mostly relied on OpenAI's models to power AI features in its key products, but developing and testing its own model is a way for the company to try and lessen that dependence. Microsoft is still a key backer of OpenAI and has invested more than $13 billion into the AI startup. Well, it is a Baja Blast from the past over at Taco Bell. That fast food chain is rolling out a Decades Y2K menu. Starting on September 9th, you're going to be able to enjoy the return of 5 classic menu items. That includes the double-decker taco, 7-layer burrito, chili cheese burrito, Cool Ranch Doritos Locos Tacos, and a caramel apple empanada. And Taco Bell is adding a new Discovery Lux box as well. I know where Jason Colthorpe is going to be on September 9th. When we come back, we're going to continue our Black Business Month celebration. We'll take you inside Northwest Detroit Food Hall that's bringing the community together with food.
From downtown Detroit, Local 4 Live starts right now.
Welcome back to Local 4 Live, everybody. I'm Nick Monticelli. Thank you so much for watching. We're going to pick up where we left off last Friday. We're continuing our Black Business Month celebration. This week, a trip over to Detroit's northwest side to visit the What You Want to Eat food hall. Damon Fernandez shows us this unique space dedicated to serving as a community hub through food.
Chicken fried rice, no egg? Not a problem.
When you think of a city like Detroit, many things come to mind. At the top of that list, food. There are a lot of restaurant and food truck options across the city. Places like Bobby Bailey's What You Want to Eat food hall is combining the two and creating a new category, indoor food trucks.
I know like a lot of other cities, warmer cities that got food trucks all over the city that can run all year long. Here in Michigan, I know we get them cold weather, so I want to do the food truck concept, but I want to do it indoors so we can keep it going along. So you notice once you come inside that we got all the pop-up windows just like food trucks.
This unique concept features 11 different restaurants with a variety of flavors. But its creation isn't just about the food. Bailey says his main goal is to provide equitable opportunities for minority entrepreneurs.
Bring out new specials for the fall winter special, you know what I'm saying? Summer was good, but now we're trying to bring out new.
For the winter?
Yeah, for the fall winter. It's a black-owned business, you know what I'm saying? So we tried to hire all minority companies, you know what I'm saying, get everybody their own opportunity to own their own business. A lot of these restaurants in here wouldn't exist without the help of the food hall, you know what I'm saying? We did complete build out for them, from fire suppression system to hood system to underground plumbing. So all they had to do was come with their concept and their groceries and they can just start to cook.
Although Bailey is a pillar in bridging the equity gap for black businesses, he says none of this would be possible without the support of Detroit.
I want to say thank you to Detroit for the stuff they're doing. Like I say, in the past, it was hard to get licensed and go to the health department, get licensed and stuff. But now Detroit is helping black-owned business open up in Detroit. Before you, hey, I want to leave Detroit and do somewhere else because it was just too hard. Now with them, you know what I'm saying, helping us out, you know what I'm saying, it's a great thing. And each business in here now, they see that.
Now, see, that's the kind of place I would want to eat. Somebody who's got some character behind them, right? Joining us now to talk more about Black entrepreneurship is the CEO of Prosperous Detroit, Paul Jones. Paul, thank you so much for coming in here, man. First of all, for people who don't know what Prosperous Detroit is, can you kind of walk them through what you guys do?
Absolutely. Prosper Us is a local community development financial institution.
Yep.
So we're a nonprofit lender, but we also provide a lot of other resources for small businesses. When we think about small businesses, we understand that for long-term growth and sustainability, you need the knowledge as well as the capital, right. And we provide both.
Yeah, well, because it's interesting because, you know, I don't want to say the money is easy to get, but that's an easier step.
Yep.
Right? It is the knowing how to manage it and working through the red tape and having good connections in the community to make your business, you know, prosperous. So what do you offer in terms of like the counseling and the kind of the walkthroughs just to get people going?
Yeah, and that's a great point, Nick. To underscore your point, I use the analogy of if you're going on a trip, the knowledge is the map.
Right.
That's the direction.
Yeah, yeah.
And the capital is the fuel. If you have the map and you're all ready to go, but you don't have any fuel, you're going to be frustrated because you're not going to go anywhere.
Right.
If you have the fuel and you're driving down the road at a high rate, not knowing where you're going, maybe running off a cliff, then that's even more dangerous.
Right.
So it's really important to provide both. In that spirit, Prosper Us, we provide a comprehensive slew of services for small businesses. We do training in the community.
Okay.
We also provide significant one-on-one support. We call it business support services. So we pay for people to get access to an accountant, lawyer, HR person. It's all, marketing is all for free.
Okay.
And we also provide the capital piece of it. So just for numbers, we provided over 300 businesses support services in the knowledge side of it last year.
No kidding.
And over 80 loans, which makes us one of the most active micro lenders in the city.
Right. What are some of the biggest mistakes or the number one things that people don't know or don't recognize when they try to open their business?
I think one of the biggest things is, one, not knowing that there's this whole slew of resources for you.
People to help you.
Exactly, and it wasn't there. Like, my background is that I'm a proud Detroiter. I grew up in Brightmoor, and like many people in that time, I thought I had to go somewhere else to start a business, and I did. I grew a multi-million-dollar company in Africa, and I came back in 2017, after I exited that business. I said, why couldn't I have done it here? Why couldn't I have employed hundreds of people like I did in Africa? Why couldn't I have done it here?
Probably could have. You just needed the people.
And I didn't know the
resources
resources were here. So understanding that these resources are here for you, and you sort of have to look for them. And we try to, at Prosper Us, we provide the resources in the community. So you don't have to look far, because we come meet you where you are, but understanding that there are resources there. You don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
And the second thing is, like you said, the capital, while it sounds a little bit, terse, the capital is the easy part.
Right.
Knowing what you're going to do with it, having a productive use.
Right.
That's what's going to be sustainable.
Right.
So having not a coach and a plan for after you get the capital.
Yeah.
The plan's not to get the capital. The plan's to know
what to do with it afterwards.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. So I've talked to a couple other lenders, and there's always this, not a difficult discussion, but it's hard because when you get the money or try to get that loan from the lender, they want to see a business plan. They want to see exactly how you're going to execute whatever it is your goals are.
Right.
And just putting that on paper sometimes can be the challenging part.
Correct.
Are you able to help people just kind of walk through? Let's say I walk in and say, Paul, I have an idea for X. I think I need Y amount of dollars, but I don't know how to get there. Can I just walk in the door and just start from scratch?
Absolutely. And there's two different pathways. One pathway is that you may want to join one of our early stage business cohorts where you're around many other people who have a great idea. I call them technicians because you know how to bake that pie, you know how to do the work, but you don't know the business side of it.
Sure.
So we walk you through that. You may be a little bit further along and say, hey, I've already started, now I'm trying to figure out how to right the ship.
Yeah.
And we offer, again, those one-on-one services, and sometimes it's with a culturally competent business support person. So
culturally competent, what does that mean?
It means that when I go in and I have been working on my business for years, and I go in and someone talks down to me, or someone talks with big words and uses a lot of financial jargon, I become even more intimidated and more frustrated.
Yeah.
So we always, at Prosper Us, our goal is physically and emotionally and literally meet you where you are, whether it be offering our courses in different languages.
Okay.
That's part of cultural competency, or also hiring people who've already been down the journey, like hiring people who are experienced entrepreneurs and can speak to terms that you're used to.
Yeah.
So we're really proud of making this knowledge not just available, but more accessible to people who need it the most.
Okay. If I have an idea, if I have some goal and I want to call you, get a hold of Prosperous, how do I do it?
First, I would say come to our website.
Okay.
That's www.prosperousdetroit.org.
Okay.
We're org. And the other thing is that come celebrate with us. We're going to have a huge annual block party.
Oh.
It's free to the public.
Okay.
And we're going to celebrate entrepreneurs in our communities.
That's very
cool. It's going to be at Eastern Market, September 10th.
Okay.
5 to 8. That's on a Wednesday.
Yep.
5 to 8 Eastern Market. Come party with us and celebrate, and you'll meet all of our ecosystem, all of our trainers, and all of our community partners. So you will you'll be around like-minded entrepreneurs, but you'll also be able to find the resources you need right there on site.
Networking and food? I'm in.
That's right. Well, I'll look for you there, Nick.
All right, Paul, thanks, man.
Thank
Good
you.
to meet you. Thanks for coming. I appreciate your time. When we come back, we're going to check in with the stock market here to see what Wall Street is looking like in anticipation of that new inflation report. Give it about 90 seconds. Welcome back, everybody. Let's get you caught up on some of the headlines on this Friday morning. A Detroit mother accused in the death of her 8-year-old son will be going back to court today. Prosecutors say Kentoria Moss and the child's stepfather beat the boy last November, leading to his death. The stepfather, Jamar Hill, is already serving 18 to 40 years after pleading guilty. Today's hearing for Moss is actually started about 15 minutes ago. A man accused in a decades-old cold case is also back in court today. Buster Robbins has a pretrial hearing this morning. He's charged in the 1989 rape and murder of Beverly Wavell in Washtenaw County. Investigators say Wavell was abducted after dropping her son off at school. Her body was later found in Superior Township. Robbins is also being looked at in other cases, including the 1990 murder of Paige Renkoski. We are learning more this morning about the 2 children killed in that heartbreaking shooting at a Catholic school in Minneapolis. One of the victims was 8-year-old Fletcher Merkel. Several others were hurt too, including 15 kids ages 6 through 15. Fletcher's dad talked about this yesterday, saying he wants people to remember his son for the kind, wonderful person he was, not just the tragic way he was killed.
Moving forward, we ask not for your sympathy, but your empathy. As our family and the Annunciation community grieve and try to make sense of such a senseless act of violence. Please remember Fletcher.
Another young child who lost their life. Her family released a statement describing her as a joyful spirit who touched everyone who knew her. Her family says they hope her memory will lead to action to address gun violence and mental health in the U.S. The other injured victims are all expected to recover. Let's take a live look at the stock market right now, currently down 0.05%. Gains for stocks yesterday as the S&P 500 closed at a record high. It was up 20 points while the Dow gained 71 and the NASDAQ added 115 points. This coming as a key report on inflation is due today. The data tracks prices on goods and services and is one of the Fed's preferred measures of inflation. Well, gas prices are jumping in time for the holiday weekend. Michigan's average for a gallon of gas is $3.37. That's up 11 cents from 1 week ago and only a few cents less than prices we saw 1 year ago. AAA is reporting flooding in the Midwest is driving that cost up. However, experts say gas hasn't been this cheap on Labor Day weekend since 2020. Prices are expected to drop more as the fall season begins. All right, so my man Brian is joining us here on Local 4 Live, looking at our forecast for the weekend, which just looks perfect. It could not be any better.
Yeah, we could not ask for a better forecast. A little bit of rain yesterday is giving way to the dry weather this morning. That continues all the way through the holiday weekend and into the first part of next week as well. So all plans for Labor Day weekend a go. If you're going to be traveling, yes, absolutely. If you're going to be doing anything, you're going to enjoy the sunshine we've got as you're heading outside early this morning. Tower cam over at Metro Airport if you're heading out to pick up your friend or for that midday flight. Lots of sunshine as you're heading out the door early this morning, but you may need the jacket. It is still a little chilly outside. 56 this morning here in Detroit, 55 up in Pontiac, also 55 this morning in Howell, and 54 as you're starting off this morning over in Port Huron. Our cold front from yesterday, well off to the south and east, down over the Ohio Valley. High pressure over portions of the UP moving into Wisconsin. That's going to keep us dry today all the way through the upcoming weekend. And if you're going to be traveling anywhere across the lower 48 to start the holiday weekend, right now, no major issues showing up in terms of airport delays, except for MCO, Orlando International Airport. Some minor delays showing up this morning due to some shower and thunderstorm activity over the not-so-sunshine state. Here at home, the dry weather continues all the way through the middle of next week. Our next chance of rain and even a few thunderstorms doesn't arrive until late Wednesday and into Thursday, but it looks like we're going to be keeping the fall-like temperatures around for the next 3 to 5 days as well. Running at least 10 degrees below average today, right around 80 this afternoon for where we should be. We will end up into the upper 60s for a daytime high. And then the warming trend starts as we go from Saturday into early next week. We'll warm into the upper 70s by the time we get to Tuesday. But the warmth isn't going to last. With that shower and thunderstorm chance mid next week, we are going to see another reinforcing shot of cooler air moving in from Canada. So that's going to send our temperatures back below average for the end of next week and into the first full weekend of September. So enjoy this brief warm-up that's on the way by the start of next week. The fall preview isn't going anywhere anytime soon. Overnight lows tonight, still chilly, back into the upper 40s before, again, we warm those up the next few days. But then once that front rolls through by Thursday night, our morning low next Friday morning back into the mid-40s as we are ending next week. So for today, we are into the 50s to start this morning, 60s by lunchtime, on our way into the upper 60s to near 70 degrees for a daytime high. And then tonight for Michigan State, Western Michigan over in East Lansing, low 80. Well, we're not going to show that because it's not going to be in the 80s. Temperature didn't flux there. I was hoping that was going to be done by then. So anyway, Labor Day weekend, really not looking too bad. 70s by the time we get to tomorrow afternoon, warming into the upper 70s by the time we start next week on Monday. And then the warming trend continues all the way into Tuesday and Wednesday before the storm chances roll in by the time we get to next Thursday. All in all, not a bad forecast for a holiday weekend.
Not at all.
Weather in autopilot, open the windows, give the air conditioning a break. Football games tonight and into the weekend will be a go. Get out and enjoy it, folks. Not every day we get a weather forecast in southeastern Michigan this quiet.
We'll give you the credit for this one because we blame you when it's bad.
Exactly. I'll take the credit now while it's good. So,
all right, B,
thanks,
thank
Nick.
you much. You may have seen that viral picture that went around showing how police used a grappler to nab a stolen car. Well, Livonia PD just sent out this video. You can see it here during a chase on 96. The grappler wrapped around the car's rear axle, bringing that car to a stop within seconds. This happened yesterday morning when MSP troopers spotted that stolen car in Detroit and followed it into Livonia. Again, 3 people were arrested in this situation, but you can see there as he tries to take off and pulls back and forth. This is a relatively new technology that's being implemented by police departments. It's deployed right off the front bumper of a vehicle, and of the police vehicle. And if we keep watching, and I think you might see here as he tries to get away, it might happen right here, right now, as the rear axle just rips off the back of that car. And that suspect obviously can't get anywhere. Incredible video just sent out by Livonia PD. It just popped up about 10 minutes ago. When we come back, we're going to check in to see what's happening on Live at the D, plus a special preview of tonight's Game of the Week. Well, Belleville beat Clarkston late in the fourth quarter a year ago, and wow, Clarkston was ready for some payback. Alec Mashenko will find Hank Horning on the 55-yard score to make it a quick Clarkston lead. They were up 24-0 yesterday at the half. It did not end there. Third quarter, Griffin Bowman scores on a 5-yard TD run, 31-0 Clarkston now. And then in the next drive, the other Bowman, the Twins, Lucas Bowman, off and running for a 54-yard TD run. You see it right here. Clarkston wins it 38-7. Now here's Joel with a preview of tonight's games.
2 is better than 1, right? Kicking off the high school football season with a second day of games at Wayne State and a second doubleheader streaming live on Local 4+. A lot of history at the Prep Kickoff Classic. This is the 20th season, and for 4 o'clock foes Trenton and Allen Park. A lot of history there, too. A rivalry game that spans multiple coaches, conferences, and winning streaks.
They won one year, we won the next. Then we lose to them, and they win. Then we beat them the next year. So it's been a good rivalry.
It's been going on for a while. You know, this in the Downriver League back in the Tri-City days and some of the mega days. You know, so we've played, I don't know how many times we've played over the years, but yeah, this rivalry goes back a long way. A lot of good games over the years.
And this is one of the best games you'll find anywhere. Tonight at 7, Cass Tech, ranked as state champs, top team in the state, taking on a perennial powerhouse from Ohio, Toledo Central Catholic.
Expectations is high. You know, we got a lot of guys coming back. You know, we got guys on the team who committed and things like that. You know, the #1 team in the state right now. So, you know, it's a target on our back. So, you know, we just going. We don't really care about none of that.
Expectations to be ready for Toledo Central Catholic. That's all we're focused on right now. If we look past that, we'll be 0-1. We played them a couple years ago. They got the best of us, so we plan on being ready for Toledo Central Catholic on August 29th.
That's tonight. Local 4 Games of the Week brought to you by State Champs Game Time Live, presented by Hungry Howie's. Stream live on the Local 4 Plus app. We hope you'll join us tonight and throughout the season.
All right, Joel, thank you, sir. Tati from Live Nitty sadly couldn't be here in studio today because she decided she wanted to be live at the Peach Festival in Romeo for their show that starts in just under an hour. But here's a sneak peek of what's going to happen on Live in the D.
Today on Live in the D, we're taking the show on the road. Join us as we go live from the Romeo Peach Festival. We'll check out the fun, the music, and the flavors that makes this a must-see family event. Plus, we'll highlight some of the businesses in the area, including one of Michigan's oldest orchards and the family-owned company that's vital to Romeo's success. We'll even get a taste of some of the craft beers being poured and a look at some really cool classic cars. It's all coming up today on Live in the D at 11 a.m. right here on Local 4.
Here I am stuck in the studio. Thanks, Tati. Thank you for joining me for Local 4 Live. More news and weather ahead here on Local 4 Plus, and as always, on clickondetroit.com. A beautiful shot over downtown Detroit on this Friday before the Labor Day holiday weekend. If you're doing anything outside, have fun, be safe, and make it a great Friday, everybody.